this on my calendar. Applicant, that would be your queue.
Did we confirm with the applicant? It's not like a sufficient.
That's a good question. Do we have an applicant? Are they present?
Sorry, yeah, I was on mute. This is Eric Tishy with AMT. I don't really have any questions. We were anticipating the comments you all provided. We are going to check into the easement. If it can be vacated, then certainly we would take your comments and incorporate them. They were pretty straightforward for us. It's kind of what we were anticipating.
Okay.
I don't know if the developer is on the line. He was trying to get connected. So either Bishop or Jim, are you guys on the line?
I'm on.
This is Bishop Johnson. Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm on the line by phone. Unfortunately, I am at least prepared to be able to answer any questions. Speaking, I was hoping to simply be a listener and an observer, so I'm not sure why. I know James Ewer was planning to be on. I would assume the callers would be on as well. So I'm kind of surprised they're not on.
You know, you're perfectly fine. Just being just listening in the conversation. We just want to make sure that we gave you a chance to speak, and then so I assume this is a separate entity from the existing religious institution that would be developing this building.
Yes.
Are you asking me a question?
This is James Urey. Yes, it will be a separate development group.
Okay. All right. I guess we'll just kind of go around the room at the virtual room, that is. Start with park and planning staff.
Yeah, I didn't have anything. I mean,
You know, I think from a, I guess, transportation perspective, I think this path connection here, the existing path, the asphalt path that's, sorry, essentially it's built. It just ends at the fence to the ICC. We would really love to get that connected as it was intended, because it would be a great connection between the ICC trail and the park to the north. And I walked it myself. I think it's a reasonable ask. It's from anybody from DPS, fire access, anybody have anything to say?
I mean, I submitted my comments. Nothing's different.
All right. Yes, that.
Is there any other agency on the line that has comments that they want to mention?
this is Matt Mikowski with Zoning, Department of Permitting Services. I have no zoning comments at this time. Thank you.
Okay.
Alan Sukup with DEP. I just wanted to make sure that you understood our comments about the need to amend or revise the previous category change approval.
This is Rebecca. Which agency did you ask?
I said I wanted to make sure that you understood our comments about the need to revise the original category change approval that was granted back, I think, in 2014.
So that's a question for the applicant?
2004, excuse me, 2004.
Yes,
that
we're
was-
aware. This is Eric Tissue again. I'm
That
sorry.
was in your narrative, so I thought that was understood.
Absolutely. It's understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, I guess if that's it, we will,
Well, I have this is Rebecca from DOT. I think Marie had a significant request regarding the bridge for the road and fire access.
I submitted the comment, the bridge, one of you guys went out and looked at it, and it is rated as an HS 25, which is sufficient for apparatus. I need to know that it's been inspected within the last year, so the applicant will need to submit that. That's kind of it.
And then our comment was we were looking for either straightening out the access point. I think it was put in place the way it was to try to keep people from making a right onto Bachelor's Forest. But if there's any way, there is kind of like a half turn lane or a deceleration lane. If there's, we were looking to actually make the radius a little tighter and remove some pavement so that it would be tightened up and create a not narrower, but just a tighter radius. So we'd like you to take a look at that as well. We're not talking about touching the bridge. We're just talking about the pavement, the asphalt, and the curb.
Okay, sure. That's no problem. I think once we get things further developed, that'll be part of our plan amendments.
Okay. The only other thing is I don't know why there is, and I haven't looked into it. There is a crosswalk that is like in the middle of nowhere, kind of. There's no curb cuts or anything. And so I don't know if you guys have any if you guys did that previously or you know anything about that. That'd be helpful.
Sure. Look into that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
all right, well, I guess once you touch base with the applicant, reach out if you have any questions or comments.
All right, is there anything else? All right, thank you, everybody. My name is Christina Sorrento, and I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for Fraley Farm. Your lead reviewer is Chris Van Alstyne. He is busy pulling up the plan. The purpose of this meeting is for the applicant to ask any questions based upon the comments you received. And I will ask Chris to highlight any of the major issues and then turn it over to the applicant. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. So Chris, once you pull up that plan, I will turn it over to you.
Yeah, good morning. I believe I sent an email highlighting some of our major points to discuss. Those include kind of some overarching process. So that's with whether we want to go to the board or not. Some issues in parallel with the water category change. Other things that we all realize with the historic preservation of the Fraley Farm, parks dedication, some notification from the environment on water table testing that can occur next year. Design, we have some design comments that we issued in a separate file, which I hope you were able to receive, and standard transportation comments on use of public roads and frontage improvements. So with that, opening up to any questions you might have.
Thank you. Pat Harris, excuse me, with Lord Turley on behalf of Pulte, who's the applicant. And just real briefly, I believe David DeMarco and Bobby Varner from Pulte are on the line, as are Tim Longfellow and Kevin Foster. Chris, your outline of the top hits was helpful. Let me start big picture, and then I'll get into a couple of the details, and then we'll go back to a couple of big picture items. This is a pre-preliminary plan in looking, and we've worked pretty closely at this point with historic staff and planning staff. We don't think it's necessary to go to the planning board with the pre-preliminary on this, but we are planning to go to the HPC because we think it's important up front to try to get this environmental setting confirmed. I know that I had some dialogue with both John and Rebecca on HPC staff, and we still owe them the historic report. And John, we anticipate that will be to you before the end of this week. So once you have an opportunity to review that, then we can follow up in terms of getting to the HPC board to discuss the environmental setting. With that, I want to zero in on 5 specific comments, and then the one item that I want to hit at the end is this question about the water category change. So of all the comments that we had, 5 that we really wanted to focus on. One was comment number 15. It was the DOT comments, and there were a number of subcategories there. It actually looks like toward the end, it may have been just repeated from another project. There were a couple comments that certainly weren't applicable here. It anticipated a loading dock and dumpsters, et cetera. This is a single family subdivision, so that's not applicable. And then similarly, there was a comment about undergrounding existing utilities. I mean, obviously we are undergrounding all new utilities within the development, but there are no plans to underground existing utilities, not required by the sector plan, not required by complete streets. And given the relatively few number of lots here, that would be unsustainable burden. So just need clarification on that. Then, and I don't have, well, I guess we can use the plan that's up at the screen. So there was a comment about extending the trail at the end of the cul-de-sac. And we are providing for the connection to the park property that's north of the property, top of the screen as you see it. But we had no intention of including paths on the existing park property. So wanted to note that. And then shifting to the area that will be new open space, which is immediately south of the existing park property. a couple of comments there. First of all, there was discussion about whether it would be dedicated to parks or not. And I think we're open to that idea. And Henry, I think we should probably have a follow-up meeting with you to discuss several items related to this. One is that we were anticipating that the only improvement on this property would be a natural surface trail. We were not anticipating crossing the existing wetland. I just think that creates more headache than it's worth. And because we were trying to create a meandering trail, there's no need to like create the shortest distance between the trail. You're on mute, Henry.
Oh, sorry. I was just kind of nodding along.
Oh.
So far, what you're saying, Parks is in agreement with. So
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so then this part we may have to have further discussion, and that is we want to avoid having to get a park permit. And no offense to parks, but based on all of our experience, that can be an arduous task. So the question is, and again, this is probably a follow-up meeting, there are a number of things that could be done. Could the natural surface trail be provided and then we turn the property over to parks? Or could we provide parks with the property? You guys take care of the natural surface trail. If that were the case, I think there's different ways to deal with it. I think the most important thing from your standpoint is we are open to dedicating that property or conveying that property, dedicating the property to parks. But our goal is not to have to get a park permit. So we'd like to explore ways to avoid that. And again, given that the only improvement on there is a natural surface trail, I don't think that's a big issue.
Yeah, that sounds right in terms of keeping talking about it. And to be honest, Parks has less interest in adding this piece as parkland. It's more the stream valley and wetlands on the other side that you are already showing that are kind of the priority parkland acquisition pieces.
We thought it was we thought that this was a priority.
No, sorry for the
or maybe I
confusion
thought
on that.
Okay.
We can, we do want to have staff go take a look at everything, but we're more interested in the stuff on the other side as parkland. And really the bit on this side is just like you said, you're already doing, is making sure that the road comes up in a way that will be able to make a future trail connection. And just going back to answer your question, that a future trail on parkland will be something that Parks takes care of. We just want to make sure that you guys allow for a pedestrian connection along the internal road from parkland out to Bowie Mill so that we can make a east-west connection at some point, which it seems like you guys are on top of. So I think we're doing great on that.
Okay, and then shifting a little bit over to the east, there was a comment about connecting to the potentially connecting to the Hendry property farm, which is the property farm to the east. And we are fine providing an easement. What we don't want to do, because it's very sort of unclear if and when that property will ever redevelop, is we don't want to create a paved surface. So our thought would be provide the easement up front and then potentially put money in an HOA coffers that could sit there for 10 years or so that if and when there's the need for a impervious connection, we can provide that connection on our side. If nothing happens within 10 years, then the money the funding would be diverted. So that's something.
That's what we had in mind. That would be great.
Okay, because I didn't think you.
Not to construct something something paved up front, but to allow that in the future.
Okay, good. We're on the same page on that one then. And then I think the only other the other big picture item was over on the other side. And so I don't know if someone could bring on the east side. The connection there, the comments noted that it would be a neighborhood street with a 30-foot right of way. I'm sorry, a 60-foot right of way. And we agree with that, though the standard for a tertiary street is 74 feet wide. So when we get to that point in time, we'll be seeking modifications of those standards to provide the 60-foot right of way. And I see
This is
that-
Rebecca from DOT.
Yeah.
The road standards need to meet complete streets requirements. And if you're doing open section roadway, that usually is a wider right of way to accommodate the swale. We'd be looking for that. We'd also look for, you need to provide center line radius for those roads. And so we need to see that when you come in for preliminary plan. And we'll make a determination at that time of the roadway to way widths.
Okay, I had thought that your comment, someone's comment was 60 foot. Tim, is
And
that?
that may be the case.
Okay.
But my only concern is if you do open road section, that sometimes we need more right away.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
So we-
Pat, to add to that, that was my comment, which says minimum 60 feet, but you have to show me a roadway cross section to fit that sidewalk and the swale in within that 60 feet. If it cannot fit it in 60 feet, then you need dedication to make sure that everything is what the right of way needs to be. So I had language
Minimum.
in there that said, yeah,
Yeah,
minimum
the
is
one
60.
thing that I'm a little concerned about, and I don't know the answer to this, is I think, so when Fraley developed or sold off pieces of the property, he reserved that little outlet for the connection to this property. He no longer owns the property on the top or the bottom of that roadway. So I think it's limited, and Tim's shaking his head. Is that correct? That it's only limited to 60 feet right there?
That's right.
And that's fine if that's
With
not.
the 60 feet, and there were 10-foot PUEs dedicated on each side, and those lots are developed, so we're gonna have to work through that, and we're just bringing that up, Rebecca, that's all.
Yeah, and we if it's already dedicated, that's one thing, but the portion that is not dedicated, we will have to evaluate the width of the right of way. And you will
Understood.
have to accommodate, because I assume you're just doing open section.
Correct.
Okay, so, follow the complete street standards for the new standards. If you need to, I think you can revert back to the details for swales, because I don't know that Complete Streets has that information in it.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I was gonna say, is I wasn't sure Complete Streets gives us the complete guidance there, so we'll certainly have to collaborate with your team on what that section looks like, so. And the other thing is the tertiary standard, the swale bottom width is typically a lot narrower than we need to accomplish the stormwater treatment and the bioswales. So, we've got some ideas of what we can do there that we've done elsewhere, so.
Okay.
The good news / bad news is it does look like because of the water testing, this is going to be delayed. So this preliminary plan likely isn't going to be filed till next spring. So we have time to work out all these issues. Because we're going to be incurring this delay, it's our goal to try to get as many of these issues worked out in advance so that once we file the preliminary plan, we really have resolved all the issues. Unfortunately, I think this was like the driest May or driest spring in history or something. And so we just weren't able to do the tests. The final issue is it has to do with the water category change. And I don't think Josh Penn, I know Chris, you are now the lead on this. We had met with DEP back in October of 2022 to talk about the category change, and we're encouraged and we're supported in pursuing this via the administrative delegation. And then, as you may be aware, DEP decided to pull this from their packet of administrative delegations because there had been a letter from Park and Planning. This was before we had even met with Park and Planning. So indicating making some comments which DEP wanted to make sure were resolved before we hopefully could get this back on the administrative delegation track. So, and I thought at my prompting, there had been some internal discussions at Park and Planning on this. What Alan Sukup had said to me is he wanted to try to get a meeting with the applicant, with planning staff and himself and his staff to try to work this out. So is there anyone who's on this call now that can provide an update any internal discussions that have occurred?
Yeah, I looked at it for master plan conformance, but I was not reviewing the water and sewer category change. That was with Catherine Nelson. Unfortunately, she's not with us today. I did refer that on to our regulatory supervisor, and we were having the discussions, but according to our staff in terms of the water and sewer category change, they believe that the master plan is insisting that this property not be served by water, and they're making the comments based that it needs a county council action, not a administrative action to do so. If it does get the county council action, then it moves forward, no problem. But according to staff, it does not meet the necessary findings for a administrative action. That's something that maybe we can discuss further with Catherine Nelson when she's back in the office, and Alan. But that's my understanding what the status is, that they believe that the master plan is very clear that this property should not be served by water.
That's surprising to me, I must say. That certainly wasn't our interpretation, nor was it DEP's. But I often say that master plans read like horoscopes, and everyone reads into it what they want to read into it. But I would like the opportunity to sit down with the appropriate people at Park and Planning, and then also include Alan to have that discussion before there's a final determination on this.
Well, Pat, with the delay in the projects being till next spring anyhow, wouldn't you have plenty of time to proceed forward with the normal process going through the council?
Well, I mean, we could, though I don't know if I'd say that's the normal process. I'd say that's one process, but the administrative delegation's the other process. And it's certainly from the applicant's standpoint, it's less resources, time and resources to do it that way. And if there's if there is in fact supporting language in the master plan, I don't see why we can't do it that way. So I'd like to at least pursue the opportunity. I mean, with a meeting, if we determine that we can't, then yes, then we'll have to go the council route. But there definitely are two different avenues for pursuing category changes.
I will leave it with the packager, which is, I believe, Chris Van Alstyne, to schedule that meeting with staff and with Alan and whoever else.
We'll schedule a meeting with you.
Okay, and can that meeting, not to be pushy, but can it be like within the next month or so?
I'll do what I can do. As quickly as we can.
Okay, that would be helpful. Is there anything else? I'm turning to the folks on our team. Did we cover all the items? See Tim shaking his head. Yes. Bobby, any comments?
I believe we're good.
Okay. I didn't touch on the things, and Chris, you had mentioned this. There were a number of design suggestions. We're fine with those, so I didn't touch on those.
Sounds good.
Like clipping the properties, changing locations of driveways, etc.
I can quickly pull that up just to make sure everybody is aware.
Yes.
Trails that we had mentioned, the revisions to those properties on Bowie Mill, and the easement area as well for that future connection. And then just minor redesign of the cul-de-sac on the eastern property.
Yeah, actually, while you have this up, question for you. So there was a comment about pipeline lots, pipe stems. There are none on the other side. And frankly, I don't think the two here really are pipe stem lots. But there was a comment that if there are pipe stem lots, then we need to justify them. And especially with your redesign, I think that even further eliminates it. Is that, and you don't have the traditional problem that you were trying to avoid, which was the stacking of houses, a front yard in front of a backyard. So I don't know that there's needs to be any special language about the lot configuration.
It depends on it. I think with this revision, that seems to be addressing that concern. With what we have in place, there do seem to be some. I see lot 8. I think is that one of the concerns. Lot 6, lot 8.
Yeah, and I think your plan modified those such that,
Yeah, so that, and, I have Alex here to speak on that if you have anything to say, but pipe stems.
I didn't leave that comment. I'm the design reviewer. I do think that creating this green space would help with that. I find it to be an appropriate layout.
and we need to engineer this, but in concept, we agree with what you're trying to achieve there.
Sounds great.
Good. Okay, so Chris, you will be back in touch with me on a meeting. John, we will get a report to you hopefully by the end of the week on the historic front.
Hey, thank you.
And then Henry, I can follow up with you and we can talk through the park issue. Oh, actually, can we go to the other side just one more time?
Of course.
So just to be clear on what the land that Henry's looking for. The dedication area, the B, outlot B?
So I think with the Stream Valley, that's the piece that is sort of, I think there's the most kind of master plan language around, and that our natural resources folks are like, yeah, that's the Stream Valley. That's the bit. And they're looking to go out and do a site visit just to kind of check things out, and then we'll be able to have a better conversation about where exactly. And I, generally speaking, the Stream Valley buffer line is a good one there, and that's where you guys are. So, we'll want to. I've got some comments from some of the specific resource folks on understanding what all of the reforestation restoration work might be on. It's a little bit less here and more on the outlot B part where it's in farmland currently, just understanding what that's going to look like and how it would be coming in for parkland. And that gets back a little bit to figuring out ways how that works in relation to a park permit and things like that too. So like you said.
Okay, so then maybe we should wait till you guys go out there and do your field examination and then we'll have a follow-up meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they're trying to get out there next week, actually, which I'm assuming, I believe they'll come in from the adjacent parkland, but let me know if you want me to coordinate. I can send you the dates that they're planning on being out there if we want to coordinate that, or if anybody needs to know that they're planning on coming.
Bobby, do you have
can you let me know just so I can let the Fraleys know, just because since they do have animals out there, they always just like to know, when people do take a visit.
Yep.
Thank you.
Will do. Thanks, Bobby.
Okay, and then Henry, after you do that, then I'll wait for your follow-up to me and we can get a meeting scheduled.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I think we're moving forward, which is exciting, though we're disappointed about the water testing, but that is what it is.
From a process, hi Pat, this is Sandra. From a process standpoint, with your confirmation that you're not seeking planning board decisions on this application, that seems to tell me that this DRC meeting is the last sort of formal step in the process, and then we're going to be having this coordination meetings. But this should be it today, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks.